Hi there, and welcome back to The Marketing Hustle. If you're new here, I'm your host, Lottie Whyte, and I am obsessed with startup marketing. Each episode, I'll have a guest join me to chat about their strategies, hustle, and hard work that got their brand and business off the ground. Today, I chatted to Lottie Whyte, who is founder of MyoMaster. MyoMaster is the home of human optimization. They make ice bars and massage guns, and you might have seen them on Dragon's Den or seen the fast rising star of Lottie's personal brand. She is an absolute powerhouse, and I loved having this conversation. It pretty much blew my mind. We talked about getting really good at one thing, like spending years perfecting how to make ads that are funny with a ROAS of 15, and how belief, like her belief, is really infectious. This is definitely one of those conversations I'm going to be talking about for ages. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you enjoy what you hear today, it really makes a difference if you can leave a rating or review or send me a DM with who you'd like us to talk to next. I'm so excited to hear your thoughts on what she had to say.
My first question, do I need an ice bath?
Oh my God, obviously.
Is my life incomplete?
100%. You're like a productive, hustling.
Where would I put it? Is there an indoor one?
Yes, we do have an indoor one. You can fold it up, fold it down.
So I just like put it in my living room?
Put it up, you could do your moment. I'm just, seriously. Firstly, you can't argue with the science.
Okay.
This is not one of those things where it's like, people have jumped on a hype wagon. I know it feels like that. But if you actually dive deeper, there is a lot of genuine science about the health benefits. But for me, the biggest thing is about the mental benefits. And when I get out of it, I honestly feel like I've just had a line of cocaine. Not that I obviously know what that feels like. But never.
Ask your friend.
I would never do that. But that's how I feel like. Just so energized for the day, excited about the day, had a moment of peace. Yeah. Even if my son is like banging on the door whilst I'm doing it. Yeah, really incredible.
So that's your everyday.
That's my everyday morning routine. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I'm convinced. I mean, you weren't going to tell me no, but that was a complete
no. I
yes.
wasn't. Yeah,
they're rubbish. You don't know anything.
Don't buy
It's all hype.
yeah.
I'd love that. We were just talking about how to get to your first million. How do you get to 7 figures? And you just said to me, you think that's the hard bit.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. What's the answer?
I think the answer is focus, and we just talked about this before. I think
and the journey to it.
Exactly. I think that everyone with an entrepreneurial mindset, which you and I both have, so you'll know this, is that you're an entrepreneur because you see ideas and you want to pursue them. And I don't know about your brain, but I'm constantly like, oh, we could do this, we could do that. Oh, what about this? Oh, this person's doing this. That is like literally, I'm like a magpie of ideas, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think to get to £1 million, you have to have razor sharp focus. And I mean that in every aspect. I mean that around product, around channels, around your team. Like, who do you really need to get you to that point? And honestly, I think a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of trying to do too many things too soon. And it really gets in the way of their growth.
I completely agree. But I think there's another flavour of that early stage where there's a power in saying, like, there's a tension between saying yes to everything because, and I guess it depends on the business model. Yeah. Like, you don't necessarily know what that go-to-market strategy is going to be that's going to stick. You might not know what that channel is going to be. Right. So I think there's I definitely found that there was this like real balancing act between not being too steadfast in how I thought it was going to go 100%. And allowing like the insight to really direct the way forward, but then also being super focused. And I think it's interesting, like in the context of that stage after that, when there's like a whole other level of focus that's needed, which is like when you really know what's working and you move into just doing the thing that's working. How in those early years, how did you balance that? Well,
everything I say pretty much comes from the mistakes that I made. So I made the mistake.
The only way we're learning anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I made the mistake of pursuing too many things. And I raised not a huge amount of money, like 250 grand. And I burnt it all very, very quickly because I chased after too many things. I agree with you wholeheartedly. You don't know what you don't know. And you're never going to write the perfect business plan on a piece of paper before you start the business and get it 100% right. It's not realistic. But I think you have to be really strategic about the experiments.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I was like, let me just throw some cash at the wall. Let's do sponsorships. Let's try and get into retailers. Let's try and sell to gyms. Let's build a D2C brand. Oh, what about Amazon? Let's do Amazon.
Yeah.
And you have to be strategic about those experiments. And if I did it over again, I would be like, right, we're going to run a 3-month trial. We're going to run a 6-month trial. We're going to put all our energy into this. Let's see what the returns are. Let's spend this specific amount of cash and see what the ROI is. I'd just be much more thoughtful about it. My strategy wasn't a strategy, really. It was really like, let's just see what happens.
And you think you could have written that strategy, or do you think you only can learn that hard way?
I think it depends on your background.
Yeah.
I came into this... I worked in advertising agencies, right?
Yeah.
So I had absolutely no idea how to build and launch a physical product and run a D2C brand. And in many ways, that's been really joyful because the learning curve has just been like so steep.
Yeah.
My learning's been like so accelerated. But in other ways, you know, I really didn't know anything. And so I had to go through that process of like really fucking it up. Can I swear? Sorry.
Yeah.
Of really fucking it up.
Of course you can.
To,
Children, stop listening.
Yeah, exactly. All you kids who tune into this podcast.
All you really entrepreneurial 7-year-olds.
Exactly.
Stop.
Yeah, I had to go through that process because I didn't know. But if I did it again with what I know now, I would run much more strategic experiments.
Yeah. Okay. If only we could do it again.
If only we can.
Would you?
100%.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation with a few founder friends of mine, and I was like, I am so excited to do it again. Like, imagine how much better I'm going to be.
It's so true.
Time around. Like, when I look back on the things I did at the beginning now, I'm like, oh my God, like, what was I doing? And I'm sure, like, we're at this point now. I'm sure in 2 years, I'm going to look back at everything I'm saying now and be like, what was I talking about?
Yeah.
Because you can't read this shit. You just have to do it. And actually what I've learned is like, I think as you go through the process, you realize that like, it doesn't matter how many books you read or how many other people you follow or talk to. The quickest way to learn is to do the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to go again for sure. Yeah. I'm only, you know, in my 30s.
We got time. I suspect we're a similar age. Let's talk about your history in advertising. So 10 years in comms?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
You've said that you learned a lot of new stuff. What have you taken from that experience?
That's a really interesting question. I had a really interesting experience when I was young, when I was like about a year into working, in that I was working at a PR agency doing the junior PR role, like press releases, calling up journalists, that kind of thing, making coffee. And
Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it. And I realised quite quickly that I didn't love doing that. What I really loved was like...
You didn't love making coffee?
I didn't love the PR side of it. I just didn't think it was that interesting. And what I really loved was we were working with some really cool startups like Graze, you know, the snack company.
Yeah.
Like, they were right at, like, embryonic at that time. And we were working with them, and I used to get on a call with the CEO every week. And it was so interesting listening to him talk. A guy called Anthony Fletcher, super smart. Do you know him? Really smart guy. And he'd been at Innocent before that, and I was obsessed with listening to what he was talking about. And so I handed in my notice, and I said, I'm going to quit, and I'm going to go and work for a startup somewhere. Like, I just want to learn about building a business. And the CEO of the agency said, essentially, like, I see something in you. We're about to rocket ship this agency. We're going to get private equity investment, which is really unusual, and at the time was really unusual in the PR comm space. And we want to grow it to be a global brand, significantly bigger. Why don't you sit alongside me, and I will take you on the journey with me, and we'll figure out what your job is. Like, you'll just, I guess you'd kind of call it a like junior chief of staff or something. And so I did that with him for like 4 or 5 years. And in that time, the agency grew to like 400 people, 40 odd million of revenue, got private equity back in 11 countries. And really, I just saw someone scale a business. Yeah. And I took untold lessons from that. It was an incredible experience.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was really cool.
What an amazing reminder for us all that when we see those people, we have to make those offers.
honestly, like, he's really changed my life.
Yeah.
You know, I
And I bet you changed his too.
I think I did.
Like,
He was at my wedding. We're incredibly close. He's an investor in my business now. Mentored me. He really mentored me through the first 2 years of building my business.
Yeah.
And he gave me so much that only he could give me, and I gave him so much from a 24-year-old perspective that only I could give him. So, yeah.
I need one of you.
I think we looked funny because he was like, he's a Cambridge graduate. He's kind of like he doesn't behave like this, but when you look at him, you'd say like white male, stale male. Yeah. And I'm like, obviously look like I do. And we were kind of this pair that went around together. Like, and he took me to every meeting. And you imagine what the faces around that table looked like. And I would come in and everyone would be like, kind of side-eyeing each other, like, what's she doing here? And he was incredible to me. Yeah, it was great.
How did that feel?
Look, it's hard. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. And I worked at a financial comms. You know, the core of what they did was financial comms. They're basically a lot of like ex-bankers or like city people. So, and this was also like, it was like, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. So the landscape looked different, and people weren't focusing on DE&I, and those conversations weren't happening. So I was unwelcome, but he made sure that I was in those rooms, and he never felt embarrassed to take me into those rooms, even if everyone was looking at him like, what are you doing? Who is this person? And I had him in my corner, so that was like really powerful.
Do you think that the landscape is different now?
I certainly think, I want to choose my words carefully here. I definitely think there's been progress, without a shadow of a doubt. I think the conversation around diversity is higher up on the agenda, certainly than it was when I started out in my career. But I know that you are still at a disadvantage if you look like me, and worse, I'm brown, worse if you have black skin. It's even harder. And that's just the reality of the world we live in. It's not right. But I think for someone like me, it's one of the big drivers of why I started my own thing, because now I get to create my own culture. I get to hire the people that I want to hire. And for me, that's the quickest way for me to make change and create opportunity.
Yeah. I think those rooms still exist though.
Oh, without a shadow of doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's so much work still to do. But what's exciting is I think my generation are probably the first, real generation who are able to influence change by creating their own thing. Yeah. And then you hold all the power, right? Because it's yours. And that's really exciting. So I hope that for future generations, it gets easier and easier.
Yes, and it's interesting hearing you tell that story, and 12 years in one breath feels like a very long time ago, which is kind of a sign of our age. So we can be like, what? 12 years ago. So in some senses, it feels like you're talking about a part, like a history. And then in other senses, it's just like that strong, it's like it takes half a second to imagine that happening all over the city.
Oh, I completely agree with you, yeah.
Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
Like that little thing that happened to you.
So cool.
Did it change everything?
No, it didn't. But it was an epic experience. Yeah. And I'm really grateful for how it was edited, to be totally honest with you, because you really are.
You're like the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, you are.
Like, take me.
You know, at the end of the day, they really can control how you will come across. And I was really lucky in that, they made me look great, to be totally honest with you. And it was a fucking cool experience. Like, what a great thing to do, and to go out of your comfort zone and be on telly and get that level of exposure for a small brand like mine is, like, you can't put a price on that.
But that exposure didn't... I'm fascinated that I asked you, did it change everything? And you said no.
Yeah.
All of that reach and the growth felt the same, or do you just mean that you knew who you were and you still know who you are? Like, what was the tangible impact on the business?
So the tangible impact was eyeballs. But I think there's a couple of things. Firstly, I think you should never take an opportunity like that, or you should think long and hard about taking an opportunity like that before you're ready. And that, I mean that in a couple of different ways. One is like, you want to present your best self. Are you ready to go up there and be grilled for 3 hours and be told your business is crap and handle that? You've got to be ready for that in order for you to come across well. And the second thing is like, you're on for 10 minutes in a series of, I don't know, they run it for 12 weeks. They put 4 businesses on every week. So it's a real shame to have that level of exposure and not be able to make it sweat. And in order to do that, you need to have people to make incredible content. You need to be ready to tell a great story. You need to have the right levels of stock. You need to run a sale around, you need to think about this like, okay, I'm going to be on Dragon's Den. How can I run an incredible 6-month campaign about this that is really going to change my business and then keep those customers that I acquire in that time to buy from me again and again. Otherwise, you have 10 minutes of fame, you get a ton of nice DMs, you maybe get a peak of sales for 24 hours, and then the world moves on. So I think it's about like, if I'd have done that 18 months before, waste of my time. Like I wouldn't have been able to squeeze as much out of it. So I think being ready for the opportunity is really important. And
was that just good fortune, or did you plan?
No, we planned for that. Really planned for it.
So planned as in, I'm going to get on Dragon's Den at that point, or Dragon's Den is coming, so I'm going to get ready.
I vision boarded it, and I'm not even joking. At the start, I'm such a millennial. At the start of 2023, I wrote 2 core things down that have come true, which was want Google investment and want to go on Dragon's Den. Put my vision board away as I always do for the year, and I've got a call in May from the producers of Dragon's Den. So didn't apply, forgot to apply, forgot about it actually, and then got a call from the producers. And once we got the call and we decided to do it, then we were like, okay, I'm in go mode. Like I'm not going to waste this opportunity. And I'm really fanatical about that. Like even coming on here, I've spent an hour yesterday, like thinking, what are the key messages I want to get across? What do I want to say? That kind of thing, like be prepared. What is the saying? Opportunity is...
Prepare to fail. No,
yeah. But there's something about like opportunity is like luck meets preparation. I agree with that wholeheartedly, yeah.
How do you find the time to do everything you do?
It's a really good question. I'm not an expert on this. I'm trying to learn about it.
Because I can hear you say that and I can nod along and be like, yes, we should all prepare. And then the amount of, like, the lack of preparation I do for most of my life is wild. And yeah. It's literally just bandwidth.
But I bet you prepare for the important things, don't you? Like, the really top of your list
yes.
things.
Yeah, I'm not like, I'm confident that I'm operating in the world okay. Yeah. But I also would coach someone on a level of preparation. I just think time is our most precious commodity.
You're obviously right. And I've been thinking a lot about this recently because I've been thinking about starting a new kind of business and, how am I going to fit that into everything? And I've realized that it comes back to that point around focus, which is I'm ruthless about prioritizing. Like I just have to accept that I'm not going to be very prepared for some things, but I'm like constantly being like, okay, what are the things that are really important to me? And I've just nailed them down to like 4 things that I care about. And as a result, I sacrifice or I'm not very good at other things. So I am not a great friend right now. I'm not. And I don't answer people. I don't remember people's birthdays sometimes. And what I've done is I am happy to sacrifice that part of my life, to be honest, because I really, really, really care about these other things, which is my 4 or 5 people in my family, including my son, really passionate about being a good parent. And staying married is really important to me. So I want to invest in that. Yeah. It sounds silly, but it would be easy to let
if you don't
deprioritize.
Yeah,
I want to stay married and I want to be a great parent and I want to have a good relationship with my mum and dad brother. Number 1 thing. Second thing is I want to feel good. So I want to train, I want to eat well, I want to take time out to look after myself. And the third thing is I've got 2 goals in business and I will sacrifice everything other than those 2 things to get there. And that's pretty much it. Can't do everything.
That's incredible. My list is a lot longer and there is my problem. You talked about your son.
Yeah.
How old is he now?
He's 4.
Yay.
Yeah, so cute.
I read that you took 2 weeks off before you went back to work.
Yeah.
And as a woman of a similar age, I really admired that.
I'm not sure you should.
Well, I think there's a breed. There's a common thread amongst female founders. Because I go to every event at the moment going, like, tell me how to have children and make this work. It's like the only question I'm asking.
Yeah.
And I think there are some threads. There's a thread about going back to work earlier than like society might be comfortable with.
Yeah.
There's definitely a thread about like more support and throwing more money at like making this all come together. There's a really interesting conversation around planned C-sections. I think like the like stat of
that
how
is
many
heavy. It's like let me have the baby at this time. So.
Yeah. I think there's just this like interesting view that isn't like, we're not all talking and saying this is our view, but there's like decisions that people are independently making.
Yeah.
And
you're noticing a pattern of, basically.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm doing my like market research of one, I'm like pulling together my like solo study. But they're all things that are not necessarily comfortable outside of our circle. You know, I think we like...
You're so right.
You know, there's a real feeling of like, oh, I fully get that. And I'm really like, I kind of admire that. And you can say to me, you know, do I really? It's like, no, I really do. But I know that if we go out onto the market, that's not how that goes down. How did you make that decision and how was it?
I think the secret to life is accepting who you are and what you want. And then rejecting like society's expectations and just being like, that's not how you do it, but this is how I want to do it. And really like, that's what I just talked about before of my list. Like someone might be like, oh my God, on your deathbed, you're going to regret that you didn't like keep up with all your friendships and you didn't really invest in them. But I don't care. You might care, but I don't. So it's same with the kid thing. Some people I know think it is unfair on my child, think I'm being a bad mum because I went back to work so quickly. And I understand that. But you do you. You know, I don't judge you for being like, I'm going to take a year off, and I don't say that's going to have an impact on your career or what's going to happen. I don't say that to you. So I am someone who like would have really been miserable if I had to stay at home with my child. And it's not because I don't love my child. Like, I love being with him. But it's not all I want to do. I find it boring if I spend a week at home with my child. That's just the reality. And I think all of this is about just being clear about who you are and being okay if other people don't think it's okay.
Has that been like that journey of finding out who you are? Has
Still
that been a
it,
journey? Nailed it. Have you always had this level of awareness, or has that changed?
Definitely changed. Like, look, I was, you know, the brown kid, only one in my school. Like, went to private school, but my parents had no money. They put all their money into sending me to private school. So I have a deep feeling of inadequacy that runs through my life. It's part of the reason why I'm so driven, because I'm trying to prove to everyone that I'm good enough. I know that. But I think as you get older, you know, you do become clearer. I'm sure you've, you know, been on the same journey. You do become more comfortable with who you are. And also, like, I try to actively think about it. You know, I try to actively think about who I am. And also I think it's really important to say, like, we evolve. So I could come and have this conversation with you in 3 years' time, and I could say, all I want to do is be at home with my child. Maybe I will. I'll meet new people, I'll have new experiences, things might change. So just like give yourself that room to be like, you know, I change, I learn new things, and things become different, you know.
And to keep checking in on that.
Exactly. To keep being like, am I happy? Am I doing what I want to do? Do I feel good? Yeah, so right.
Begrudgingly, I think we should talk about some marketing stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that.
Okay. as much as I want to hear how you've manifested your whole life. What's really worked?
So we've been on this really interesting journey with the business where we started and we entered a market that had a couple of really big players. At the start, we started with a massage gun, right? And there were two big US brands, Therabody, Hyperice. Therabody raised somewhere in the region of 200 million. We started making We started making the products at our kitchen table and like had a budget of, you know,
with like glue and a
legit, like went to B&Q.
Like people make soup at their kitchen table. They don't make massage guns.
Legit. Like, so the first product was a B&Q drill with a different end put on it. And we saw, that was our first like 200 sales. Like, please no one come back and sue me, because I've honestly been waiting for it. Like, I literally have been waiting for it. I shouldn't put that out there because it might happen.
Don't manifest it.
Yeah, stop. Yeah. So anyway, we're basically, you know, we were competing with the big dogs. And what I thought we had to do was do what the big dogs were doing. Like, we need shiny photo shoots, we need big athletes, you know, they've signed Ronaldo, who can we physically persuade to come on board? I thought we had to do what they were doing. What I've learned is that if you're a small brand starting from scratch, your USP is you and your story and your authenticity and who you are and what's going wrong and what's going right and all of that. And we did the, you know, follow the big dogs thing for about 2.5 years. And we were sort of growing, but we were burning cash and it wasn't a successful business, basically. And 18 months ago, we nearly ran out of money and I had to be like, we have to change something because what we're doing is not working. And we decided to focus on just being a D2C brand. And we decided to go all in on making content that made us laugh. And we were like, this is the acid test. If this doesn't make us laugh, we're not making the video, we're not making the ad. You know, forward to now, we've grown, I don't know, like a fucking lot. I don't know what it is, 700%, something big. I should know the number. Must do. We only create ads that we love making. Like the stupidest shit, right? We sell like expensive, you know, kind of high performance products, and we will be like in the garden pouring Huel on my head, or like, you know, my co-founder dressing up as a newsreader, and we like die laughing making it, and we're like, if it cracks us up, it will probably entertain other people.
Someone will have a good time.
Someone will like it, yeah. And therefore they might click on our ads. We're getting an average like a 15x ROAS across our ads, and it's completely changed our business. And I just realized that like authenticity is such a buzzword. Like, what does it even mean? But like, just like have some fun and like tell your story and be who you are. And I just think there's so much power in that. Definitely in the early stages. And the really funny thing is that my stepmom told me when I started out, she's like, look, you can't compete with these people. Just lean into what makes you you. And I completely rejected her advice. And if I'd taken it at the beginning, I would, you know.
Yeah, but
so yeah, you know, do your thing, basically.
Yeah. Do you think that will have to change?
I actually don't. I think there's sort of an idea that, you know, you get bigger and you have to professionalize. And I've realized that I don't want to do what I don't enjoy. So I think there's a level of scale to it. And, you know, we've grown quickly and there's a lot of things we have to fix and get better at. And professionalize in the sense of like, you know, if you've got more customers, there needs to be more processes and systems and stuff. But like the essence of what we're doing, I think is like, we want to entertain people, we want to give them a great experience, and we want to bring them into the story. And I don't think that should ever change. Personally.
How's your marketing run today?
I'd love to tell you that like there's some like great big structure, but I only have how many people do we have now? Like maybe 4 or 5 full-time employees. That's it.
Wow.
Doing like probably close like 6 or 7 mil this year. And we have a growth marketing meeting every week.
Yeah.
And then we have a creative meeting every week. And the creative meeting, everybody comes into that meeting. So like the guy who does our customer service comes into the creative meeting. Big believer in like the ideas come from anywhere. And I actually think customer service is really underutilized because they're the people talking to the customer every day. So they're like, no guys, that's not going to resonate, whatever. Come up with the best ideas. We literally like every idea is welcome. Big philosophy, like just suggest it. We'll just see. And so we dump all the ideas then. We have a really good, he's not a videographer. We don't really have titles. So
People who do things.
People who do things. So yeah, he's a great video person, but he's also like, it goes beyond that in terms of like, he doesn't just film stuff. He really thinks about what content makes sense, what hooks would be really great. He writes scripts. So we brain dump with him and then we go, let's go and make this stuff. And then in the growth meeting, we look at like, the figures, the channels, what's working, what's not, what should we try? It's a bit more kind of data, basically. So we just have creative, we have data, and then everybody gets shit done. Like, let's just not spend too much time in meetings. That's it.
I feel like every time I sit at this table, I end up having a conversation around brand v performance. Because every time I go to any event, I was at a networking thing last night and someone was like, I've got a really novel question for you. It's like, sorry, what? It's like, how do you think about brand v performance? It's like, well, I have 7 million hours of podcast content on that I can direct you to. But what you're describing is kind of interesting in this context. So you've got a way of working that's pretty performance focused. So it all comes back to those growth meetings.
Yeah.
But lots of creative input that's ultimately driving towards growth. And then you have some clear brand parameters that it's got to be fun and it's got to make you laugh. Is that as far as you go with like brand thinking with a capital B, or do you have are there any other feeling of guidelines or constraints?
No, there's definitely a broader feeling of guidelines. We have a couple of, so the entertaining and like funny piece is one, but there's a couple of other things that like are kind of core brand values, and that's really around like, we always said that we would only ever kind of create products that are good enough to be used by elite athletes, even if they're not being bought by elite athletes. We would want to be like, any elite athlete could buy this and be satisfied with it and think it's an amazing piece of kit. So that kind of really leads some of the storytelling as well, and some of the brand piece as well. It's like, we want to have fun in everything we do, but we also need to communicate that like, this shit is good. It's really great quality. It's an amazing thing. And then there are a couple of others that we're always thinking about. To be honest with you, I think when I look at other brands that D2C brands or consumer product brands that have done really well, I think they've done a lot better than us on the kind of brand thing. So like, a lot of things around community, social, all those things. There's a lot of work for us to do in those areas. And it's like our next big thing. But for me, back to focus, I wanted to get really good at one thing. Yeah. We're amazing at Meta and Google. Like, we're really, really good at it. And now I'm like, right, now let's become really, really good at the next thing. And then let's layer it on. And then let's become really, really good at the next thing and layer it on. And that's just how I approach it, with like smaller budgets, kind of relatively bootstrapped business, right? So yeah.
How do you get really, really good at one thing?
Do the thing.
A lot.
Just do the thing. And then keep revisiting the thing and being like, what did we do good? What did we do bad? And that's really like our approach with everything we do.
Do you learn from others? Are you a big studier, or are you like, we'll do this and we'll work it out as we go?
You know what? Like, I've just realised that there's just no playbook. I know people say there's a playbook, but I don't think there is a playbook. No. Like, I look at other brands that are doing really cool things that I admire. Actually, a really good way to talk about this is at the same time as we started, another brand started in a sort of tangential space. So they were doing like supplements, basically, wellness brand. My husband's a rugby player. He's also co-founded the business with me. And it was started by another rugby player who retired at the exact same time as him. Like, a lot of crossover, right? Okay. Both started in London. They grew 10x faster than us in the first few years. And I'm not kidding you, probably anyone who's in this space will know who I'm talking about. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I think so.
Yeah. And they did like all this community stuff, right? They started run clubs and they launched clothes and they were like so cool. And I'm like at home with my baby, But I looked at them and I was envious of them. And I was like, guys, we got to start a club and we got to do this. And what I now know, we're now at the same size, actually, pretty much. So we just had different kind of growth.
The journey,
just different journeys, right? Different paces, different learnings. Following anyone else's blueprint isn't going to work for you. And actually community, that kind of growing through community wasn't the right thing for us to do. And it worked for them because they had a CBD product and they couldn't run meta ads. But we've got really good at meta ads, and that's driven our business growth. And so I think it's just to say that, like, you have to do the thing, because if you worry too much about what everybody else is doing, you're just not going to grow in an authentic and organic way, and you're not going to learn the lessons that you need to learn for the right thing for your consumer. So for me, it's like, sure, take inspiration, but you've got to figure it out for yourself.
There's something really refreshing in what you're saying, which is that I think lots of people start brands and they feel like there's this checklist of things you have to do.
Yeah.
And a founder a few years ago, I was doing a strategy for her, and she was like, what's the point of Instagram? And I kind of like said something because you're meant to say something. She was like, no, I'm sorry, I don't get it. What's the point? Why don't we not do it? Should we turn it off? And I just, it's so rare that I come up against someone whose view is, I'm very comfortable not doing a load of things that we're meant to think you have to do.
Exactly. You're so right.
And it's so unusual to say, I'm going to launch, who launches a brand without a website?
Right.
Who launches a brand without an Instagram feed? Who launches a brand without, like, the one slide on what community is meant to do that they can't deliver because they don't have the resource for it?
Exactly.
But none of these things necessarily move the needle. You could just run a newsletter and your whole business could be built off a newsletter. Wouldn't that be incredible and refreshing?
You are talking about the focus point again, though.
Yeah.
Which is like, honestly, like, just do one thing when you start. I say this to founders all the time. And, a lot of this is because we live our lives on social media and we're, constantly comparing ourselves to other people. Like, you have to be like, what is the thing that is going to work for me? Or even if you don't know, what is the thing I'm going to test and I'm going to become so great at and really try and make work? And for us, once we got razor focused on, like, we're going to create really funny ads, we grew to 6-7 million quid just doing that thing, one thing. And I know it's not the thing that's probably going to get us to 20, but it certainly gets you a really long way out the gate. And now there's a million things we should be doing. I know that the checklist is so long.
And you will choose one more.
But I'm going to choose one thing, and we're going to do it really, really well. I think we're going to go all in on organic storytelling, behind the scenes, sharing what we're doing. We're going to launch a YouTube channel, and we're going to weekly tell you, like, oh my God, this has gone wrong. This was awful. We're going to bring you on the journey. That's the one thing we're going to do. We might take the YouTube clips and share clips of it on other channels, or like make the content sweat, obviously. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to take people on the journey. That's our next one thing we're going to do really well.
And what I'm hearing is that that's not an 8-week plan.
No.
That's like a 2-year plan.
Yeah, we'll be like really trying hard with that for the next 18 months.
Until you're at a level of expertise
Until
where it gets
we're like
baked
this,
into...
Yeah, or we might get... We've said we won't quit before a year. So we're not going to quit the YouTube channel, weekly uploads before 12 months, because you need that time to test and to iterate and to learn. And you can't quit too soon, because otherwise you just don't get the learnings.
Well, so it's failed before it's out the box.
It's failed before it started, right? And so we're going to do it for 12 months, and we're going to keep iterating every week, learning every week, improving every week. And then if at 12 months it doesn't work, we'll do something different.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll be like, go ham on influencers. I don't know, something else. Yeah.
And the state of the business will direct what that could
exactly.
be. It
could be point. We move fast, right? So, yeah.
Well, you move interestingly fast and slow.
Yeah.
So I feel like you move very fast in your execution, but I think you move quite slow in your strategic shift.
Yeah.
And that's quite unusual.
Maybe, yeah.
No one says we're going to do a channel for a year because I know that I need a year of commitment to this to get really good at it.
Right.
So to my mind, that's really refreshingly slow and clear.
I hate being called slow, but you're totally right.
I'm trying to think of a rebrand on slow.
Can you say something else?
Considered, wise, thoughtful, noble. We can reframe it, but actually that's kind of interesting that slow triggers us.
Of course.
Like it feels countercultural. It's like
does.
That's not how we operate. I don't feel good about that.
And also in this, I'm the worst for this. So. In this world where we celebrate speed, right? We celebrate the people who grow the fastest and improve the fastest and hit their goals in the fastest time. It does feel counterintuitive. You're totally right.
But as you say, you pinned yourself against a business that was fast early.
Yeah.
And there's a degree of like the hare and the tortoise here. Like,
For sure.
just that consistent pace is actually going to outstrip.
I hope so.
Outstrip.
I'll get back to you.
Oh, no, you're already proving it. You don't need to go, you're this far in, it's going so well.
Right.
You talked about being kind of semi-bootstrapped earlier. So you've raised relatively small checks for the size of your growth.
Yeah.
Why, I just think it's always so interesting, like why you make these funding decisions and how you approach it that way. Why was that the way of doing it? I'm sure you could raise an awful lot more money.
Yeah.
And how has fundraising, dare I ask, been?
So the first part of the question is, why are we doing it in this way? And it's, when I say bootstrapped, in the US, if you haven't raised VC money, they call you bootstrapped. You could have had a £5 million trust fund, but you're a bootstrapped business. So that's why I sort of say semi-bootstrap, because I like believe in transparency. I don't want to sit here and pretend that we didn't raise any money, because we did. Yeah. We've probably raised about like between 750 and £1 million so far over the years in very small chunks. Like first was 60. Firstly, we put in our life savings. Very important. The reason it's important, I don't know who I'm talking to, what's going on, but anyway, very important. Important because I think it's so powerful. It's so powerful to be invested.
Yeah.
I understand not everybody has savings. So I'm speaking from a point of privilege. But putting in our life savings, I mean, every penny, has been important for me because it has forced me to stick with it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I can't afford to lose that money. I have to make this work, which is, got me through some of the hard times. And secondly, every investor I've ever spoken to is encouraged by the fact that I've taken that risk and put I think they know then it pushes you through the dark times. So that's comforting to them. So I would recommend, you don't have to put your whole life savings in it, but, I'd recommend making a contribution yourself, making a financial sacrifice yourself so you can show this means a lot to you if you want to go on and raise. The second thing is I do not want to run a VC-backed business. One of my core goals in life is to have freedom about when I work and where I work. Even though I work a lot, I want to do it on my terms. And I know I got to learn pretty quickly that like if you're VC backed, that ain't your life. Yeah. You have a boss. I don't want one. I've got probably like 10 to 12 really cool angel investors where frankly they can afford to lose the investment. Yeah. That's why they angel invested it. They're very kind and supportive when I ask for it. Otherwise they totally leave me alone. And I would like to continue operating on that, under that framework. And if that means I grow slower, I'm totally okay with that. Yeah. Because for me, freedom is back to knowing yourself and your goals, the freedom is a higher priority for me than the growth. So that's why we've raised like that. The fundraising journey has been, it's a shit show, man. The whole thing's awful. I've been rejected by probably 200 investors at this point. Hard to take that rejection in the beginning. As I said, I've got this core feeling of inadequacy, reducing slowly as I kind of achieve more things. But you're just taking that amount of rejection is really tough. Like, it's hard to be told that your idea is shit and you're not going to make it and still turn up at work the next day and give it another go. But also, in hindsight, after having 200 conversations, the first one made me cry and made me feel awful. The 200th one, I don't give a shit. Like, I move on super fast now. So, developed like a real core of resilience. And again, I think resilience comes from doing the thing and failing and doing it again. And now, like, I really don't care if you tell me my idea shit. I'm not interested. And that's kind of like back to the point about Dragon's Den. The reason I was able to be to Stephen, like, I don't care if you're not my customer and I don't care, was because, like, I've done it enough times now. If I'd have gone on there 3 years ago, I would have cried to his face when he said
that. And that's a very different story for the business.
That's a different story. That's where I'm fundraising.
You talked about learning resilience. Did you learn, like, in those rejections, was there valuable feedback about the proposition, or actually you just knew what you were doing?
Ooh, tough one, I think a lot of people ask me this about fundraising when they're going on the journey. It's like, because a lot of people say you should take the feedback, you should iterate your deck, you should then take the next feedback and iterate the deck. If you're not careful,
you just end up with an absolute Frankenstein.
Well, exactly. If you're not careful, you end up with a completely different business than the one you started with,
which is like 200 people.
It's 200 people's iterations of thingy. So I think one of the hardest things about being a founder is knowing when to filter advice. I think 99.9% of the advice you get is useless. And it's not because the people aren't smart or they haven't done it. It's just because you're not doing the exact thing that they did in the exact same way that they did.
Yeah.
So I say that I listen to very few people's advice. And it's not because I think I know it all. I clearly have got this wrong most of the time. Like most of the things go wrong. But it's because I've got a vision for what we're trying to build and no one's ever built it before. So I have to trust my instincts and believe that I'm going to do it right. And the other thing I would say is that belief is infectious. I think belief, deep belief, and actually rejecting people's advice because you believe so deeply you're going to do the thing is really powerful for investors, for people you're trying to hire, for anyone. It's like, believe so deeply that people can't help but believe with you, kind of thing. Yeah.
That is pretty powerful advice.
Stole it from Nike.
From this little guy that I met. One final question for you.
Sure.
What is one thing that someone listening to this can help you with?
You can go to myomaster.com and you can improve your life and your wellness and how you feel every day by purchasing one of our products and joining us on your wellness journey.
Amazing. No one ever does that and says, can you just buy my product?
Yeah,
that's what I need right now.
The most helpful thing you could possibly do for me, yeah.
Amazing. And what an incredible last comment. That belief is infectious. I think that's what anyone listening to this should take away, and it's definitely inspiring hearing it from you and all your passion.
Thank you so much. It's been
Thanks
so
for
nice
coming.
to chat.
It's been so fun.
Power to the Lotties.
I know, exactly. Thank you so much for listening. Next up, we have Joe Metcalf, founder of Thrift Plus, coming on. So we're going from ice baths to secondhand clothes. A reminder that leaving a rating or review or getting in touch to give us some feedback makes such a difference. Do share this link with a friend if you've enjoyed this episode. I really think Lottie had some stuff in this talk that we should all remember for years to come.